everyone. I am Metal Mayhem on Nerds Order. I am here with a personal friend of mine. Tell him about yourself.
Right, I'm Monomode. I'm a producer from UK. I do multiple genres, so I'm not really constrained to any typical sort of I'm a producer in techno or I'm a producer in tech house or progressive house or whatever. I experiment with multiple things because it's just more fun. It's constraining to just put yourself into one box and not try out everything else that's out there. So I kind of try to diversify the things that I produce. I can't really stick a label onto the type of producer that I am. So I guess that would have to sum up the stuff that I'm putting out.
I love that. Like always getting creative. That is amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
So where did
That's
this
that's
start?
the
Like
thing.
where the love for music start?
The love for music. It started out in my childhood because my parents would play around the house like funky and disco and those kind of old records, stuff like Michael Jackson and Modern Talking. I don't know if you know about that band. It
Yeah,
was like a big
familiar.
German band in the, I don't know, 90s or something like that. So from then on, I kind of I got bit by the bug. Basically, I started looking into it more and more. Uh, at the beginning, just by listening to things and finding out what sort of music I'm drawn to. And then from then on, I started getting into interviews of artists and like them explaining their way of making their songs. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I could have a hobby in this. So I started digging into it more and more, like the technicals and like what sort of stuff actually goes into one of those songs and how they record, how they mix, how they basically come up with the finished product. So from then on, for a couple of years, it was a lot of technical studies and musical theory and like mixing theory, all that kind of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, but not many see unless it's actually a public interview and they explain what they do. You wouldn't know otherwise. You'd be like, my God, this track sounds amazing, but you're not really aware of what goes behind the scenes and how many hours they put into it.
It
Uh, so yeah, that's kind of my beginning into production, and from then on it kind of started getting a bit more like tastemaker type. I started being very particular about the sounds that I actually want to make, and getting into the arrangements and structures beneath my music, because to me a lot of music these days, it's very formulaic, as Deadmau5 says, like all the time, like it's just a four on the floor type of thing, and the arrangement doesn't change much. Like not a lot of stuff goes in and out. It's just the main theme, and then it's just duplicated across the grid for like 5 or 6 minutes or however long you want your song. So I kind of try to break out of that type of constraint and give my music uh, sort of my typical character. I look a lot in character when I make my sounds. I don't want it to be just the same computery op or like preset pad or something like that. I really put thought into everything that goes into a song, and uh, to a certain degree, you get bored after a while because everything starts to have a similar sound to your ears, but that's actually not what goes on, because you get used to it because now it's your sound. So you're um, yeah, you're meant to develop on that. And that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm very particular about everything that goes into my music, and I try as much as possible to stay away from like um, mainstream type of mentalities. Like, oh, if this song doesn't have I don't know, a great vocalist or the latest synth or I don't know, some sort of popular sound pack, like it's not going to work out. When it's not really the case, I mostly aim for the vibe of the song. And I pretty much don't really care what goes into it as long as the vibe of the song feels right. So yeah, I kind of went on a sidetrack there, but yeah, that's my passion for it, and uh, a bit of an introduction of where I started.
Honestly, like when it comes to music and vibe, it's like if the vibe is just right, it's you're gonna nail it. Like that's why I love music like
Yeah.
yours. And like the whole thing about Deadmau5, I looked up to him for a lot of advice too. So hearing your aspect on that, I couldn't agree more with you on that. And
Yeah.
honestly, like I think you're doing the right thing with how you're making your music. I love it. So far, everything I've heard, I've loved. But yeah,
I'm glad to hear that, man. I'm glad to hear that. I don't hear it too often. It's like sometimes maybe I hear the odd comment on Instagram or something where I promote my music, and it's always heartwarming to see that people actually, you know, have put their time to actually listen to the thing start to finish and give an opinion on it. It's very nice.
yeah. What inspired the name Mona Mode? Like what inspired that?
Monomode, it's mostly because of the singular mentality that I have. Like I don't usually collaborate or um, I don't know, remix other people's music unless I really, really like the thing and I want to take it in a different direction. So most of the time is singular projects. So mono kind of reflects that singular idea, mono mode, like single mode, uh, the one entity that does it all. I don't
I
know,
love that.
some sort of fucked up shit like that. But yeah,
That's great. I love it. I really love that. I think that's amazing what you're doing.
yeah. I try to expand on it as much as I can and as often as I can, because as I'm well aware, you also have a job aside from doing these kind of hobbies. You
Well,
have
been
well,
trying.
yeah, same with me. Like it's hard to sustain yourself when you're in the beginning and there's not much of awareness or like people don't really care about where you are yet, so you don't really do anything out of it. And I sustain myself from other things behind the scenes most of the time. So yeah, that's why also the chaotic release schedule. Like it's one this month, and then you might see two tracks drop the next month. Like you're like, what the hell is going on? It's not really a scheduled um, program. That would be ideal for me, like to come up with something every other month and like have it in a package like an EP or something like that. But it doesn't often happen this way because of me having to put my time into other things and doing this whenever I get a chunk of time to work on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, I see where you're coming from. Like, a lot of people don't know how hard it is to balance a job and make music at the same time. Like, whenever I see something new come out from an artist I got into, it's like awesome. They finally had time for that. Like, I get the struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's why I like to support new artists. I love that. And it's nice to always get to speak with them too, because I know the struggle of trying to balance a job and then trying to get music out. It's like you have to put so much time into both, and it can be sometimes very complicated and very time consuming. Well, obviously, very time consuming.
Yeah. Exactly. And I bet just as me, there's plenty of hundreds of artists out there that are doing the same thing. So yeah, it is what it is when you're trying to I guess push out something different and do it in a time frame that works for you, because uh, I would be able to push out a lot more tracks if I didn't have anything going on behind the scenes and try out a lot of um, different things that I wouldn't normally do. But sometimes I stick with what's tested and tried, because it's hard to waste my time in developing new mentalities of uh, making, I guess, something that's completely left field, like something very experimental and very out of the ordinary. Uh, but then again, yeah, that at some point that becomes your sound, and it's hard to break out of it. So that's a whole entire subject um, in itself. But yeah, if I had more time, then I would have a lot of experimental things going on behind the scenes from which I can develop new projects that don't really sound like what I've been putting out. In a sense, like I try to make it as different as possible uh, by changing all the reoccurring themes. But as you know, a lot of producers develop their tool set along the time they put into production, like templates and certain synths they use, certain sounds they gravitate towards. That's the same in my case. I gravitate a lot towards those staple tools that I've gathered along the time, and I don't stray away too much because it would take a lot of time to get into them and master them. So yeah, and I think that's the case with a lot of producers.
Honestly, though, I love how you're doing it. Like you always try to keep it different. I love that. But sometimes people don't do that much. They just try to roll with one thing and they go, if the audience likes it, I can just keep reusing it. I don't like artists like that.
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
what you're doing. Like you're always trying to get creative. You're always trying to change it up. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I
I
get
think
that a
that's really
lot.
good.
Like a lot of people give me the same comment, like no song that you've put out sounds like another song that you've put out. And I'm like, that's the point, creating something different, a new sort of world every single time.
That's amazing.
And yeah, that's the main point of it, because I would get bored and tired of making the same thing over and over again and just changing one or two things to make it different. Like, yeah, that's not my ethos.
My favorite thing is like every song, it's a whole new sound. Like, I still remember from when you did Step Inside, like that is still one of my favorite tracks to this day. It's like I love the creation of that and how it's been evolving. I love it. You're always switching it up, which I think personally is oh, it should go for a lot of new artists. So personally, I think you're going on the right path, and I'm really excited to see what's out, like see what's next.
That's nice to hear, man. I'm glad you're enjoying the catalog as it is so far, and yeah, I've got a lot more things planned for the future.
I'll let you about to ask that. Like,
Um,
what's the future plan?
but I'm currently juggling between the release schedules. Like, should I put them out as singles? Should I put them out as albums? Because with marketing these days, it's just very confusing. A lot of people don't really care if you put out an album. They just listen to the one song they like, and the rest of it is like discardable. Um, and a lot of people have adopted the single release mentality, where they just put out the song, and if people like it, fine. If it doesn't go out that well, they didn't waste their entire catalog, uh, because a lot of albums follow the same kind of theme. You have your project structured from top to bottom, and you try to break out certain ideas and certain songs. And if one of those doesn't stick out, then all of it will get lost. It's a very complex thing to dig into these days, and I try to stick with releasing just singles, because in my opinion they pop out more than an album. I've tried album formats before, as you're well aware, and it didn't go out that well. Like, people dug out one or two songs out of it, and then the rest of it is just like it doesn't even exist.
Yeah. I can't stand that person. Like whenever a new album comes out from a band I like, I try to listen to the whole thing. Like that's why I
Yeah.
collect vinyls. I listen to every track, not just individuals. I feel like even though it's a big album, all songs deserve to be heard.
Yeah,
That's how I do
exactly.
it.
And as you said, you mentioned it before, like no uh, track in in my recent release catalog, at least, has sounded the same as the previous one. Like you're always in for something new, and sometimes that can throw off people. Like, hold on, this is a complete theme change. It's like it doesn't really sound like what I'm used to. It's yeah, it's a battle you're constantly fighting when you're making something new, because if people get used to something, and yeah, that happens a lot with the mainstream music. They put out one song, they see it does well, so they try to mimic that, but in a different way. Whereas I completely turn it upside down, and like it does introduce a bit of confusion, but at the same time, I try to stay true with my mentality of putting out something different every time and not making it the same experience again. Yeah.
Like I totally get that, honestly. Like one thing I hate about mainstream is how it's all the same. I can't stand that personally. To me, genre and music is supposed to be like completely different things. Like, you're supposed to really hop out of what you're used to. That's why I listen to almost all
Exactly,
genres.
because
Like, I flop between funk and classical to metal and EDM. Like, I can switch from orchestra to death metal in 2 seconds. Like, I love switching between genres. It feels like I'm getting to an all new experience with each song I listen to. That's
yeah,
why I love people who mix up everything they do.
exactly, exactly. It's I don't know. There's few inspirations that I have in the electronic department, because a lot of people try to copy each other, and that doesn't really strike me as a good example. But my main influences would be, I'd say, Deadmau5, uh, Armin van Buren, the old Armin van Buren, well, like the Mirage type of thing. When he put out that album, was I really loved it, and even the previous stuff with Image, that really inspired me a lot. Um, and then the more I dug into it, I kind of went in the opposite field, like from progressive house and trance, and stuff that you would sometimes hear on the radio. Like it's not uncommon. But then I switched it to the underground stuff, which is techno and drum and bass with guys like Subfocus and Heavy, Delta Heavy, and things like that. That's not stuff you would normally hear. You'd have to dig into it to find it out. And that's, yeah, and that explains like why I can't stick to a single genre, because I have so many inspirations from different genres that I've listened to for extended amount of time. I know the staples of those genres, so I can easily get into it and make it my own. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot to it. I can mention hundreds and hundreds of inspirations that I've had along the time, but the thing with me, it's I never stick to just one specific person for too long, because then that same thing that reoccurs in EDM with people copying each other and whatever, like that happens when you're a producer and you listen for an extended time to a single artist. Like their sounds become kind of easy to imagine in your head, and to then put them into your DAW and put out the same thing. Like it's easy for you to
It's
you would
easy to
think
mimic.
about it subconsciously. Like you wouldn't actively try to copy the same sound, but you would do it subconsciously because you've been listening to it for such an extended time. So yeah, I've got loads of inspirations, and I'd probably mention lots more if it wasn't this late. My brain kind of works funny at late hours.
No, I get you. I understand that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's like Delta Heavy. I was into that during high school, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I've always been into underground music. Like
yeah,
mainstream's okay, but I always dug deep because I wanted to see what else was out there. I was into underground a lot more than I was into mainstream, whether it be metal or house, like anything in between. I've always looked a lot into the underground,
yeah,
or, well, underground world of music for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's good. It's always good as a producer to have a very varied palette of sounds that you listen to. Like, and I advise every new producer that comes into this thing to do it and do it properly. Like, don't focus on a specific thing because you'll end up making it over and over and over again. Extend your palette, like listen to rock, listen to metal, listen to dubstep, listen to dance music, listen to underground stuff, because you might stumble upon something that you don't normally find in the one genre you're mainly listening, and you might find sounds that inspire you to make something new, and or even give you a rough idea of how you could use those sounds into your own music or for a future project, or keep your palette diverse as possible. Don't just constrain yourself to one genre, because even in staples like Deadmau5, like in music, I hear a lot of times things that I would hear in funk music and in metal in certain cases, with his bass lines and how he distorts them. Um, yeah, he has, I think, a lot more influences that he mentions, like Trent Reznor and that. Like, I get it, but like Trent Reznor is more focused on synths and ambience, whereas he takes cues from a lot of other genres and a lot of other artists. So yeah, that would be the one advice I would give to a newcomer into this, if I could. Yeah.
That's great. Like I used to like when I was a kid, I always tried to get into one genre like everyone else, but I'm like, this isn't very fun. I listen to almost everything
Yeah.
now. Like I give every genre a chance, no matter what it is. I always give it an opportunity. And so far I've never been disappointed.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I can switch from orchestra to death metal to all the way back to like underground. Like I can go everywhere with music.
Yeah.
Honestly, so it's fun. Music is a good way of healing, a good way of learning. Like I've learned more lessons from music than I did from any teacher. Like if you, because
Yeah, exactly.
I study what I listen to. Like I look deep into the lyrics of every song I listen to see what is there and what I could learn
Yeah.
from it.
Yeah.
And same thing with house. Like I love to just listen to it, let my mind go a bit, and it's great stuff to like relax and vibe to. That's why I've always loved music like yours. Like it's so easy to vibe to it, and it's just amazing. Like I got my friend into it who also runs the page with me, and he loves it.
Wow, amazing. That's great to hear, man. That's great to hear.
I'm glad. This was really good. I think we're good now though. I got everything I needed. I asked all my questions. And
Sweet, brilliant, man. I'm glad to be part of it, and yeah, it's my first interview, so I might have not run through all my ideas and everything that I wanted to share, but there's always a future for that. So
yeah, I'm always here. I'm always here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be part of it. I'm glad to share my thoughts with you and give you an insight of what's going on behind the scenes.
Glad to. Well, everyone, this is the end of the interview with Monomode. I hope you all have a wonderful day and be prepared for another interview next week.